We are now joined by former Florida State national champion cornerback, Cowboys, the NFL, now the head coach at John Paul II in Plano, Mario Edwards Sr. with Paul Catalina, an FSU grad, David Smoke, Sikkim 365 Radio. Mario, you've kind of known, we've known that Coach Bowden was not doing well. When the news came down yesterday morning, your thoughts and your reaction?
Well, it was definitely news that no one wanted to hear, but we knew the coach's situation. I mean, he had been sickly for a while. But the great thing about it is Coach was always at peace with the inevitable. And so it was definitely news that no one wanted to hear. But knowing that Coach was at peace made it all better.
What did he mean to your life?
Coach meant so much, not just to my life, Dave. I mean, to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I mean, Coach was very influential. He influenced so many people. He knew how to hold a conversation, and he knew how to talk to people and make people feel important. And then the way he treated people, the way he carried himself, the way he handled his business. He was a walking role model of being a devout Christian leader. And he was a fair coach. I mean, everyone was treated fairly. Now, everyone wasn't treated the same, but everyone was treated fairly. And just to see him practice what he preached on a day-to-day basis was big time for me.
Mario, you and I overlapped as Florida State students for a couple years. I'm class of 02, and one of the things you always hear about Coach Bowden was he was just the master of the living room and the house and visiting with your family or whatever. But what was your recruiting story? What was the thing that hooked you into Coach Bowden at FSU?
Well, there was no fluff. I mean, he never promised me that I would start. He only promised I'd have an opportunity to start. But he told me that there were a lot of good players already at Florida State, you know, and he thought that I could be one of those caliber players. And so just knowing the track record and the history of Coach Bowden and his record at Florida State, it was a program that I was elated to be a part of or have an opportunity to be a part of.
To be there, and you got there when they had already really started to establish that run that was insane for almost, what was it, a decade and a half, top 4 finishes. They won the national title with Charlie Ward in 93. And then you guys were close as a junior with Tennessee, but then you won it. What did it mean to be a part of that tradition at Florida State?
Well, my time there, we played for 3 national championships. Lost once to Florida, lost to Tennessee, was able to get it done my senior year by beating Virginia Tech and Michael Vick team. But just being the team of the decade, being the team of the 90s, tradition was high. We just prided ourselves on not being that recruiting class or not being that group of guys who let the program down, who didn't uphold the standard of all those great players and great student athletes that came before us.
I assume the 93 team, probably held a special place in his heart because that was the one that finally realized the dream. But you guys were his best. That 99 team was his best season. Was there something special about that particular group? Because, he had a lot of great players and a lot of great teams, but there was no season that he ever had that went as well from beginning to end as 99 did.
Well, it was a group of guys who were just committed, 100% committed. And not saying that the other teams that he had in the past were not committed, but this particular group of guys were committed. We had played in 2 national championship games, and we all just, the off-season, just said this is our last opportunity to do something special. And it didn't hurt that you had a Heisman Trophy winner in Chris Winkie at quarterback, a Biletnikoff finalist in Peter Ward. Defensively, we were always ranked in the top 3, 5 in the country my time there. So we had pieces in place, but more so than the pieces, we believed. We believed we could get it done. We believed in what the coaches were selling, and we knew we had to go out and execute it, and we had a group of guys that were willing to do it.
You know, I one of your teammates on that 99 team, David Warren, who came from Texas, I covered him in high school with John Tyler, a blue chip parade All-American. He told me what you said earlier when Paul asked you about how he commanded or owned the living room, about how real he was. Did you ever see him ever get outside of that box?
No, that's a testament to Coach. He was who he was. It wasn't a switch that he had to turn on to be Coach Bobby Bowden when he got into someone's living room. I'm sure he was the same way at home with Miss Ann. I mean, I'm sure he was the same way at home. I'm sure he was the same way at church. I'm just sure he was the same way at the family reunion. That's just who he was. And so, yes, it made it easy for Coach to be Coach because he didn't try to be anyone else.
Now, I know that coaches are kind of an amalgamation as you go through your coaching career of not only yourself, but all your coaches. So I do wonder, Mario, how often do you get fired up and say dadgummit at practice?
Hey, I mean, I may not say dadgummit in practice, but let me tell you this, though. I tell you what I do often in practice. I do think about some of the lessons that were taught to us by Coach Bowden. It's hard to run a program or be a part of a program. It's hard to even coach without thinking about lessons that you've learned with your time being around Coach. So he's with me daily. He's with me daily, and I may not use his lingo, but I think of him daily. Some of my morals, a lot of my morals and values come from Coach Bowden, and reason being is because he did it, and he did it well. But more importantly, he did it the right way. He did it the right way.
You now have your own program at John Paul II in Plano. George Teague, the AD. We've had George on this show many times. What's it like now to have your own program as Texas high school footballs begin practices?
Well, it's a dream come true. I mean, most coaches, I would think, who coach aspire to be coordinators and head coaches. But to be a head coach, what I've learned by being around and under Coach Bowden is that you can't do it by yourself. You've got to have good people around you. And I'm not afraid to say I like to have people around me who know a little bit more than I do. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be the smartest man in the room, okay? I want someone around me or a group of people around me who can add to what I bring. And not being afraid that they're going to steal the spotlight or that they're going to get the credit, because when we do well, we all get the credit, you know. And I'm not afraid to single out my guys and let them know that I appreciate them. But for me, being a head coach, I think the first thing I learned is that you got to have good people around you. And I was blessed and fortunate enough to have that.
Mario Edwards Sr., whose son from Denton Ryan won a national championship, the team that Jameis Winston and company was a part of, and kept that tradition alive at Florida State. If you don't mind, you've seen now what's happening with college football and the changes with both Texas and Oklahoma eventually leaving for the SEC. Florida State, of course, is a part of the ACC for a long time, an independent. What are your thoughts as a guy that played at the highest level about what you see with college football right now?
I mean, it's all about the money. I mean, it's all about income. It's all about revenue. I think it's a good move that Oklahoma and Texas be a part of the SEC. I mean, although I played in the ACC, I mean, I'm a football guy, and there's no doubt about it. The SEC is the dominant conference. The SEC is the best conference in college football. So if you have an opportunity to make that move and be competitive in that league, I think that you should. Now, the thing that kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit is when you have high school athletes who the likeness, the image likeness thing. I mean, you've got high school kids who haven't even touched the high school campus and bringing in, 6 figures, some 7, and it's only going to grow from where it is now. My thing is, what would that do, or what is that going to do to the college game? You know, the change of conferences and being a school that goes from one conference to the next, I mean, that's just part of it. But when you get to pay players, or players are getting paid, or the ability to be paid, and I'm talking about big money, I mean, what does that do for a college coach? Are you gonna be able to coach this guy?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is he gonna listen to you? I mean, he's coming through the door with already, you know, a big purse or a big wallet. I mean, how motivated is he gonna be? You know, I mean, a lot of things have to be taken into account, and I'm anxious to see what it does to the game, and how the game benefits or how the game is hurt from this.
Mario, I would be remiss. I had this note in my head about the 1998 game against Florida. You guys, there was a bit of a fracas, to say the least, before the game started. And I know Doug Johnson tried to peg Coach Bowden with the ball and missed him. And Coach Bowden made a very funny comment about it in the post game. But that game in particular kind of sticks out to me with how much affection that you guys had for your coach, and that no Chris Winkie, Marcus Outzen, very inexperienced, and really just dominated a Florida team physically that without your quarterback, most of the time you wouldn't have had any place beating. I
mean, Coach Bowden did say something post game, but that's them. I mean, he was funny when he wasn't even trying to be funny. Mm-hmm. I mean, but the admiration we had for Coach Bowden, it was like, we dare you try to throw the ball at our coach and get away with it. And you know what? We'll get you back, and we'll get you back the right way, in between the white lines. And I just remember Coach telling us, listen, man, you don't play to the whistle. He said you play to the echo of the whistle. Now that's talking about finishing plays, finishing drives, finishing is what he was telling us to do. And needless to say, after the game, I mean, we did just that, play to the echo of the whistle, and came out victorious.
Mario, do you remember the last time you spoke with him?
It was about 3 years ago, actually about 2 years ago. He came by, and I have the video on my phone. He came by to speak to the team, and we were in the theater room, and I sat on the front row, and he just talked about God. He talked about his life. He talked about we all were going to go meet our maker at some point. He talked about the legacy of Florida State. He talked about recruiting, and then he talked about his coaching staff that he had there. And I recorded that whole talk that Coach gave us, and it was during the recruiting process. So we had recruits in the building as well. And I recorded that whole video that he had. And I looked at it the day before yesterday, and I'm like, I did not know that would be the last time I would hear Coach speak to us as a team, speak to us as a staff, and just the opportunity to have Coach speak to us, period. And so, to me, that will always be branded in my mind as that was the last opportunity I had to video or be around Coach, be Coach.
Mario, thanks for your time. Mario Edwards with the Cowboys to start his NFL career, won the national title at Florida State, played in 3, now at John Paul II School in Plano. Good luck to you this week, this coming season. And great to hear from you again. And thanks for all the insight, background, and reminiscing about the great man of Bobby Bowden.
Well, Paul and David, thank you guys for having me. And you guys have a great rest of the day.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio.